What's going on, guys? We're back with another episode. So today I'm here in BC practicing, getting my training in, and it made me think of when I started my under par journey last year. So for those of you who don't know, last January I challenged myself to shoot under par by October 1st. Now at the time I was basically a 10 handicap and was like, how can I get to the under par goal? And so I achieved that goal actually a month early on September 1st. Now, in order to get to that goal, first thing I had to do was break 80, which was a tough thing I was struggled with a lot. Today I'm gonna go through my 5 tips on how to break 80 and my overall strategy that can help you better your scores. So first, before I go into the tips, the overall thing you are trying to fix when it comes to breaking 80 is you just want to avoid double bogeys. Bogeys we can live with to a point, but double bogeys are the dagger. So the 5 tips I'm gonna give you are all about eliminating double bogeys and ideally bogeys in general. So tip number 1 is only work the ball one way. Okay, so don't try and hit a draw and a fade. Find whatever shape you can consistently replicate off the tee and wherever you're hitting the ball. So for me, after kind of figuring out my game, I realized for me it's a fade. I can replicate a fade all day. I know how to aim a fade. I know what to do so that I don't have to stress where the ball goes. I just kind of pick my targets and I roll with it. Once you commit to hitting the ball one way, you completely eliminate one side of the golf course. Makes life much less stressful because there's nothing worse than a double cross miss. And if you've seen any of my previous videos when I was fighting some of that, it's a score killer. The other thing too is that honestly, most pros don't even work it both ways. So like, we don't need to hit those shots. We're especially if you're not practicing enough, there's just no need to try and work the ball both ways. Pick a consistent shape, that's it. All right, tip number 2 is you need to develop a tee shot on par 4s and 5s that is not your driver as a backup. Because typically, you know, when you're trying to break 80, you're probably not practicing as much or you're probably not golfing as often, right? Which means your driver is probably erratic. So on days when your driver's cooking, amazing. You've got your driver bombs away. However, on days when your driver's squirrely, you need a backup club for holes that are tighter that you can rely on that again follows your stock shot pattern but gets you out deep enough. So for me, it was a 2-iron early on. Once I got my fitting done, it became my 3 hybrid, and that was kind of my safety club. If my driver goes squirrely, I at least have something that can get me out there, so at least I can be playable and I'm not just fighting an erratic driver all day. I'd rather be shorter in the fairway than be out of bounds. Tip number 3, and I see this a lot. I played over 200 rounds this year with a bunch of different golfers of all skill levels. And one of the things I saw was people don't take enough club. You need to take more club. A lot of times people are estimating their distances based on what a pure shot would be. So if you have, 150 out, whatever club equivalent that is, you're gonna think, okay, so for me, 150 out can be a pitching wedge or a 9-iron depending on the wind, right? So let's say that's the purest of the pure pitching wedge for me goes 150. 9 times out of 10, I'm probably gonna take a 9-iron unless the wind is really down because I know I have to absolutely roast a pitching wedge to get 150, or I can hit a much more controlled 9-iron and have a much better shot at being closer to my target. Because again, if I'm trying to swing for the skies here, I just don't need to do it. So take more club. It's better to swing easier and be more confident in your swing. Again, especially if you're not practicing as much, just have a more calm, consistent swing as opposed to trying to absolutely roast one. And there's no ego in taking more club. Enough of this. I see so many golfers all the time afraid to take a 6 or a 5-iron because their buddies are playing 7-irons. Who cares? Put the ball closer than them with more club. It doesn't matter. Get rid of this macho ego stuff. We don't need it. You don't need it. Just take more club and hit better shots. Stop trying to be Phil Mickelson, put away the 60-degree wedge, and don't hit high lobs. The reason being is that is a very low percentage shot if you are not practicing a ton. So I basically benched my 60-degree wedge. I exclusively used a 52 or a 56. The only time I would pull out a 60 is if I was in the bunkers or if I had maybe this shot right here where I needed to carry it, and see that little slope right there, so I want to land it there and go. But again, that's super risky. Most cases, you're better off to just take your 56, dump it, maybe not get as close to the pin, but now you're saving yourself from, getting weird turf interaction or any of those things. The 60-degree wedge can be a great tool, but you need to practice it. It's got to be something that you're working on constantly, and it took me a while Again, this is just my own experience, but it took me a while to put the 60 in play and actually be able to make use of it, as opposed to having something that was costing me shots. And you don't want them to cost you shots. Remember, double bogeys, evil. Put your 60 away. You don't need it. And tip number 5 is practice your chipping and putting like a demon. If you have 45 minutes to go to the range and practice, make sure you dedicate at least 15 to 20 to even 30 minutes. The more you can, the better, to just nailing down your chipping and your putting, to just get it to somewhat of a reasonable level. Limiting your chips onto the green is so vital in lowering your scores. Getting just some of your putting down, the amount of strokes you can save by just being tighter around the greens. And if you use tip number 4 and get rid of the 60 and start using better clubs to chip with, like your pitching wedge, 52 or 50 degree and 56 degree, and just focus on just rolling the ball close to the hole. Don't try and get fancy. If you can do that, you will immediately change your scores. If you go to episode 1 of the off season that I dropped last week, I talk about this chipping and putting drill, my 18 up and down drill. This thing was the reason I broke 80 and then eventually broke par. I do this drill every day here in my off-season training. I literally do it every day because it is the single biggest driver of success for me in golf to date. And I'm throwing one final bonus tip in here, and that is don't try and hit hero shots. Do not punch out. Take your medicine. You're better off to make a bogey than you are to make a double or a triple by attempting a shot that you have no business attempting because you can't hit it because you don't practice. I have so many of those shots where I would love to absolutely rinse a hybrid or a 3-wood out of some spot on a par 5 and go for it. But it doesn't make sense sometimes. Remember, we gotta look at the bigger picture. And I get it. Playing with our friends, there's adrenaline, everyone's getting hype. But if you want to get better scores, you have to stick to some sort of a game plan. Hero shots, they're just not the move. And from the better players I played with, they all know how to keep themselves in check for those. They manage their risk. And a lot of those shots, again, it's just high percentage misses. You're better off to just punch out or lay up or do some of those things that aren't maybe conventional in like golf meme culture that you see on Instagram. You know, everyone jokes about not laying up, but sometimes you should. Just lay up. You'll get a better score and you'll be happier at the end of the round, because the one time out of 10 you roast that 3-iron and you're pumped. Great, awesome. Now you have a great story. But the majority of the time you're not going to roast it. And then you're going to dump it into the crap. And now you're punching out. You know, you could go anywhere from a double to a quad if you're not careful. And there goes your whole score. And so just keep that in mind. I don't mean to lecture you. I want you to score better. These are things that I constantly have to tell myself, like, to manage and to make sure so that I can preserve good scores. Remember, we're going for score. There's no pictures on the scorecard. So play better golf. Follow these 5 tips plus the bonus 6 tip. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. We are training all winter long to get better at golf. There's going to be tons of tips, tons of things, and I want us all to get better. So please join this community, comment, engage. I reply to everything. Thank you so much again, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.